everybody. Welcome to Enjoyment and Success, the first lesson in the Running with the Mind 10K training with mindful running coach Marty Kibolowski. So, Marty, in a previous interview that we did, which I posted just below this lesson, just down the page, the viewers can watch it, and I do recommend that they watch it. You recommended that when we evaluate our performance, that we prioritize three factors before we look at outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And these factors are quality of effort, fun, and did we help or encourage others? So in that interview, you gave us a lot of reasons why it's helpful and valuable to you and helps not only our mindfulness practice, but our running as well. And I'm just wondering, in the context of this 10K training program, what are some of the reasons that you would recommend an approach like this?
Is whenever you have a goal towards, say, a 10K, and we could talk about any distance. It could be a half marathon, it could be a 5K, it could be a mile, it could be whatever you want it to be. An important way to start is, what are the factors associated with that goal that it would be enjoyable for me, other than just the outcome? Understand that if you hit the outcome, there's a perception that that'll be a joyful experience. In most cases, it is. But what other factors are there that contribute to the overall experience that I'm having, other than just the outcome? And one of the things we can focus on day in and day out, depending on all the other things that happen in our life, number one is, what is our quality of effort that we're putting forth towards our goal? And I say quality of effort, which is kind of hard to define, but I think everyone knows what it is. So it's really putting forth what you feel is quality. And then if you are having if you're not meeting your expectations in terms of your training that day, or even a race that you have, you can look at your quality of effort. And if it's high, I mean, what else could you have done? So that's really the reason you want to look at that rather than just the outcome, because there's other factors that come into play here in terms of our own biorhythms, the stresses we might have that week, the amount of sleep we've had, the food we've eaten. All kinds of factors contribute to a successful outcome. But one of the ones that we can really monitor and have more of command over is, what is our effort, as an example. The second one you mentioned is having fun. And the reason that's important is because consistency over time with any sort of training is what gives you the greatest reward. And the only way you're going to be consistent is if you're having fun doing it. Because if it's really hard and arduous, then eventually you're going to stop doing it, and because it's not joyful. So let's find a way to make it fun. And then the third one is by really identifying the other people that are around you in a competition, or around you in any way that might be able to help you, and you extend a helpful hand to them. Not only does it help you feel good about yourself and what you're doing and the whole experience of what's going on, but it also helps you to relax. And as we all know, we perform better when we're relaxed versus when we're nervous. So that's another reason why that's so important.
If you could just tell our viewers a little bit about how you recommend setting these goals or picking the goals, like what kind of goals are going to lend themselves to maximizing our enjoyment and success?
I think the first thing you want to do as you're formalizing a goal is think about, if I was to hit this goal, what kind of personal meaning would it have for me? And part of that is about our motivation, because if it does have great personal meaning to you, then you're probably going to be more motivated and the greater likelihood of hitting the goal. And as you look at the motivation, and you would be motivated, why are you motivated, is another important thing to talk about. This is really incorporating the mindfulness part of this, Josh, is to look carefully and be aware of all the contributing factors that are happening for you in this situation. If you can look honestly at a goal, and the answer why this would be so important to me is about proving something to other people, if you could be honest with yourself, that's worthy of stopping right there and taking a closer look, because that's problematic. And it's common, by the way. It was common for me as a competitor and a lot of other people. And it comes from a place of feeling there's some sort of lack, or something's not quite enough. And if I was only to do this, then it would be better. I'd be special. I would be a runner. So if your motivation is to seek outside approval from the outside world, thinking that you want to be admired or loved, or think this people will think you're special or successful on some level, it's okay, but it's important to know that's what's going on, that's happening, that's a script that's playing in the background, part of your programming, that's important to identify and take a look at. And the reason I mention that is because if that truly is your motivation, it's never going to be enough, because no matter what you do, the world's a fickle place, and you're not always going to get the admiration and the accolades and the things you might want from the outside world. So that's not a safe place to be, and not an accurate assessment of who you are and what's going on either. So let's go inside and say, okay, what would make this joyful for me? If I was to do this, would it be fun? How could I make it fun? Would I be proud of myself just because I was able to set a goal, work towards a goal, overcome obstacles as they arise, because they always do, and then actually hit my goal over some period of time? And would that be a joyful, fun experience for me? If the answer is yes, then now you're on the right footing, the right foundation.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's great. You know, I was thinking about a conversation we had last week, and I think you mentioned um, in a given training period, the number of races that you might have that actually felt like you achieved the outcome, and the number of races that you had that didn't meet that outcome.
Yeah, it's true. And so the reason I know these things, Josh, is because I've learned them the hard way. And as a runner in high school and then in college and then post college, running the marathon distance and trying to make the U.S. Olympic trials, and that it was a very consuming endeavor for me for a lot of years. And there were times when I would train regularly 100 miles a week. And as a marathoner, you need to do a lot of long runs. And so I had a streak at one point of over 150 Sundays in a row of 20 miles. And that's a lot of work. It's hard. No matter what the weather would be, I would do it. And I would put so much of my life into this training that I also would plan for the perfect race. I would start the race at a perfect pace. I would visualize exactly how I'm going to execute during the race. If I'm going to pick it up at certain places, if I'm going to slow down, if I'm going to surge, or what my pacing is going to be, how I'm going to finish in the race. All those factors would factor into what I perceive as the perfect race for that day. And I found that probably one time out of 20 that I have the perfect race. So that meant 19 out of 20, I failed. That's how I perceived it. And the truth is some of those races in there that I said that I failed were actually quite good races. And if I'd have used my other evaluation process, like what was my quality of effort, I'd have been 20 for 20, because all of them I was trying hard. It's just other factors that I didn't count on. The unexpected, the unforeseen would show up. That's a key component to any sort of goal that we typically don't plan for, is the unforeseen. For an example, the death of a distance runner is to go out too fast. If you start your race too fast, you put your body into a deficit, and it's not mental at that point. It becomes physiological, and you're not going to be able to run your best race because of what goes on when you spike your heart rate and you go into oxygen debt. There's not enough oxygen to satisfy the work. You just won't run as well as you could have had you paced yourself better. It's just a fact. And then you learn from that and hopefully don't do it again. But if you do that in a race and you continue to go on, you have to know you're not going to have your best time this day because it's already too late. But what I could do is deal with that surprise. I didn't plan to do that, so I'm going to call it a surprise. And then how do I finish the race based on that? And then how do I evaluate myself based on how did I respond to the surprise when it arose, because I wasn't counting on it. So that's another benefit. That of course would have been a non-perfect race, yeah. Right? And that would have been one of the 19 out of the 20 that I would have thrown in the trash as no good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, everyone. This is the conclusion of our first lesson, Enjoyment and Success. We look forward to seeing you on the next lesson, which will be how to determine your goal. And so thank you for watching, and look forward to seeing you on the next lesson.